everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to look at the Mafex Batman Hush Riddler. I ordered this from OmniOmni.com. If you're ordering your Mafex figures from Big Bad Toy Store or other American websites, you're probably paying far too much and waiting too long to get your product. I'll drop a link in the description below. So let's take a look at the packaging. And as you can see at the top, Batman Hush. The Riddler, Batman Hush version by Mafex. Here he is in the package. I see a ton of hands, a bag of money, some loose money, and a couple different heads. One side of the package, Batman Hush. Other side, you got Riddler posed up. This is the 228th figure in the Mafex line. On the back side, here's a Riddler with a ton of accessories, interchangeable parts, and display options. And at the bottom, there's a barcode if that helps. So with no further ado, let's open him up. And I did get two of these Riddler figures, one of which to open and enjoy, the other one to keep unopened in my complete Batman-related unopened action figure collection. Alright, now that we got this figure out of the package, here he is with all the accessories laid out. Comes with quite a bit of stuff. We have a display stand, 12 alternate hands, totaling 14 interchangeable hands, 2 heads, bag of money, some loose cash, and a Riddler cane. I can definitely put the money to some real good use in my action figure world. Before I take a look at all that, let's talk about and check out the figure. So this is the Riddler. His real name is Edward Nygma. He's one of the most intelligent people in the DC universe. His biggest problem is he's insane, and he has no choice but to leave a clue every time he does a crime, and that usually leads to Batman catching him. He's undergone many changes over the years, but in Hush, he was still the typical villain Riddler. Now I have mixed feelings on his look, and we'll talk about that as I go through it. Let's take a closer look. Start with his face. I don't know. Big old schnoz. The hair. It just looks kind of goofy and kind of cartoony. Riddler typically is a more serious guy. I don't know. DC directed a version of the exact same source material, and I feel like theirs look a little more serious. Just something about the hair. I don't know. I'm just not feeling it. He's got that hat above there. He's in the traditional Riddler suit. Green suit, purple tie, white shirt underneath. It actually looks very nice. One question mark on the tie, really no other question marks on the suit, and I think I kind of like Riddler that way. It looks like single jointed knees, but they go pretty far back, as I recall. Double jointed elbows. Pretty thin, lean, suited body. And I think it looks pretty good. Except just not feeling the hair and the big schnoz. And a closer look at his face and head sculpt. It's kind of weird. I see like a little bit of Robin Williams in there, which is kind of appropriate for the Riddler. And then here's the figure, broken down as far as he can go, with all of his removable parts detached. Now let's check out his accessories. Let's start off with the display stand. It comes in 3 separate pieces, at least the main part. When put together, it's going to look like this. At the bottom, we have a large base with 3 different slots to put the posts. Then we have the actual post. At the bottom, it can rotate. It's hinged. Hinge in the middle. Hinge near the top. Rotation at the top. And then it has this clamp to hold your figure in place. Now let's check out his hands. He has a total of 14 of them. 7 left hands and 7 right hands. Here's his first pair of hands. These are his fists. And his second pair of hands. This is a pair of gripping hands. And his next pair of hands. This is a pair of pointy hands. Could also sort of grip something, and the pinky sticking out a little bit. And he has a more traditional pair of pointy hands. You could either point, or kind of have one finger over his mouth, doing this sort of hush thing. Shh. And his next pair of hands, these are some open hands. They could be some grabbing or choking hands. Here's his next pair of hands. This is a pair of default hands. They would look good relaxed at his sides. And his final pair of hands, which are very similar to the last pair, just slightly different. They could have probably easily shaved off 3 sets of hands here. I wouldn't have missed them at all. I will say with his hands, the first pair came off no problem, and the rest were very tight. I would suggest dropping them onto hot water as you're progressing through them. Now let's look at his heads. He has 2 of them. The one on the left has kind of a goofy grin, and the one on the right has a big smile on his face, like he's really happy he just stumped somebody with a riddle. Now I wish there were more head options. I wish he had one head with no hat, and then a separate hat. I also wish he had one head with the hair a little bit more tucked in under the hat, so it looked a little less goofy. Here's his first head. This one has the goofy grin, and I feel like the head is a little bit too high up. I wish you saw a little bit less of the hair. And here's his alternate head. This one has the big smile. And I will also say with his heads, the first one comes on and off no problem. The second one is super tight. When I push it onto the sort of peg, it took the peg out with the head, and I had to drop the head into some hot water, pull the peg back out, put it on there, so it's kind of a pain in the ass to swap heads, since the first one, no problem. The second one is just going to keep pulling that peg out and require me to do a bunch of work to get it out. Just mildly inconvenient. Now let's look at his Riddler cane. Very basic, but accurate to Hush. It's simple. It's got a gold top, and then a little green cane. Kind of resembling a question mark. Go figure, huh? Here's the Riddler, holding that cane in the air, and here he is, holding onto and leaning on it like a regular cane. And then here's a look at his money. He has a little sort of stack of money. Looks like he's in the middle of counting. And then we also have this large sort of bag, which presumably full of money. It has this sort of line on both sides, which is pretty hideous. Hold it like this, looks fine. Like that, not so much. Here's the Riddler, holding that stack of money. And here's the Riddler holding that bag of money. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a gripping hand large enough to hold it by the top, which would have been nice. You can really only hold it like this. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at both the figure and his accessories, let's check out his height. From bottom to the top of his head, standing about 6.2 inches tall, which can translate to just under 16 centimeters. And that means the top of his head is probably around 6 inches tall. And for his articulation, starting with his head here, of course, it can rotate side to side. He can look up, not much because the hair is going to obstruct that, down quite a bit. Can tilt his head from one side to the other. Shoulders, on a ball joint, they go out about 90 degrees. Now, it's not exactly what you think. So it has a ball joint going into the arm, and it's like a ball joint inside of here, and then another very small little ball joint here, which is going to connect to here, so it's like they're separate. That's definitely not how a typical action figure is designed, but just showing you Mafex is really trying stuff different to give you articulation that is sort of hidden, although it does pop out and looks ugly, but you gotta push it right back in. It'll allow you to get more articulation for certain shots, like maybe he's looking like this, you want his arm coming out, it kind of works. But if you look from the back, it would look hideous. They're trying, and they're succeeding. They're doing different stuff. I like it. There's a good amount of rotation all the way up and down. Double jointed elbows. His wrist can rotate, and it's hinged. Torso is pretty much one solid piece. He's got a ball joint at his waist. Rotate around, forward and back. Legs. They go out about this far. Maybe I could push it a tiny bit further. Ball joints inside of here. He's got kind of drop down hips. They look ugly like that, but push them back up. Then they go forward about that far. Back not much. It's a single jointed knee. Goes back a little bit more than 90 degrees. And then his ankle. Forward and back. Rotate. Tilt rock, at least a little bit, and toe articulation. Nice, shiny purple shoes. Here's a look at the Riddler at his base, pondering up his next scheme. And bam, there it is. He's just come up with it. The perfect plan to outsmart Batman, the police, and everybody else. Now let's check him out. Next to some other action figures, starting off with some other Riddler figures. Here's the Mafex Hush Riddler, next to the DC Direct Hush Riddler. They're based off the same source material, the same design, but I think the DC Direct one looks a little better. The hat's removable, so it looks maybe a little too big for his head, but I really prefer the face, head, and hair on the DC Direct version versus the Mafex. I prefer pretty much everything else on the Mafex figure. And here he is, with my McFarlane DC Multiverse Riddler figures. Then, with all my DC Direct and DC Collectibles Riddler figures. Next, with my Mattel Riddler figures. And now, with McFarlane 1966 Batman Classic TV Series Riddler figures, and here with a couple of older Kenner Riddler figures. Then, with the McFarlane Superpowers Riddler. Here's a look at all the Riddler figures in my collection. I believe I have all of them in the 6 and 7 inch scale. If I'm missing anything you're aware of, please drop me a line in the comments below. Here he is, next to a Diamond Select Toys TV show Gotham Edward Nygma, and with a couple of custom Edward Nygma and Civilian Tiger figures. On the left, 7-inch scale. On the right, 6-inch scale to go with the 66 Batman Classic TV series figures. Now let's check them out. Next to some other figures that I use for Riddler thugs or henchmen. Here he is, next to 6 of the Batman movie Riddler figures. At the end of the film, there were probably 50 to 100 people wearing these outfits, so it works good as a Riddler thug or army builder. And here he is, next to a couple of custom Arkham City style Riddler thugs. Then, with a few different Jazzwares AEW Trent figures. Why do I use Trent for a Riddler henchman? Well, the back jacket has question marks on them. I need to do some head swaps, maybe paint their chests like they have a shirt on. Riddler thugs. And finally, with some Mattel Wrestling Rey Mysterio figures. These are versions that have question marks on their outfits. Now let's check them out. Next to some other Mafex Hush figures. Here he is, next to the most recent Hush figure, Scarecrow. And here he is, next to the Hush Joker and Harley Quinn. Then, with both Hush and Jason Todd as Hush. Next, with the Hush Poison Ivy and Catwoman. And now, with the Hush Superman. Here's the Riddler, with the Hush Nightwing and Huntress. Then, with all 3 versions of the Hush Batman. Here's the entire Mafex Hush collection. We currently have 14 figures, and plenty more on the way. Tim Drake Robin, Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, another version of Batman, Batgirl, Ra's al Ghul, and there's still plenty more they can make. I think the Hush line is doing well for them. They're a great collection, and I hope they milk it as far as they possibly can. Here's the Riddler, with several other Mafex Batman figures. Now let's check them out. Next to some action figures from different various companies, so we can see how he fits in, both scale and style-wise, in case you know which lines you can mix him with. Since he's a Mafex figure, they're typically the 6-inch scale. I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of these smaller action figure lines I collect, and work my larger. But first, let's check him out with some of his Mafex brothers. In front of you are 5 different action figure lines, all from Mafex Toys, all 6-inch scale. And now, with some Jazzwares Fortnite figures and SH Figure Arts action figures. Here's the Riddler next to a piece of bread. And here he is with some Hasbro Marvel Legends and Mattel DC Universe Classics. Then, with both some Jazzwares and Mattel wrestling figures. And now, with some Mezco and NECA figures. Next, with some DC Direct and McFarlane toys. And finally, with some Diamond Select toys and Jakks Pacific wrestling figures. So overall, it's a good Riddler figure, but I'm really just not feeling the head. I'm not feeling the nose, the hair, the domino mask, the face. I just don't like it. The body's fine, but it needs a new head. And I'm sure there will be plenty of people providing 3D printed head sculpts out there that you need to paint yourself, etc., etc. It just looks goofy and kind of cartoony. It doesn't look like how I imagine the Riddler. Very serious, very logical, like Batman the Animated Series. I know he can be portrayed many, many different ways, and he wasn't really goofy in Hush. I'm just not a fan of the head. It's mainly the hair. Beyond that, his accessories are pretty good, although I wish I had some more heads. His articulation, it's also very nice, and I appreciate that Mafex does some more complex things. It's not a simple ball joint. They try to improve upon their articulation, and I think they succeed from time to time. That's how they evolve over the years. When Mafex started out, they sucked something fierce, but they're pretty damn nice nowadays. If I were to rate this figure, probably going to say 6.5 out of 10. I just wish he had a more serious and quote-unquote normal Riddler head sculpt. But it is a nice figure, and it's nice to round out more Batman Rogues in the Mafex collection and the Hush collection. So this is D Hunter. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say to the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.